Hey guys, what's going on? This is Andrew here today, and I'm going to be talking about why I have been disappointed with the Nintendo Switch this generation. So let's get directly into it. When the Switch was first announced, I thought it was a really interesting concept. I still think it is. Handheld Nintendo consoles have always sold really well, and now that they can bind it with making it their home console as well, it made me really think that this would take off because Nintendo has always been great with the handheld market. They've always known how to make it take off, and I figured them also turning it into their home console was a great choice instead of having two different devices that just bring it into one. Sure enough, the console blew up, and the days of the Wii U were finally over. Breath of the Wild is still one of the best games I've ever played, and Mario Odyssey was seriously a great Mario 3D game as well. Third-party support was also at the best it had been in years when it launched, and I was starting to get really happy with this as my secondary console for on-the-go gaming instead of going for a gaming laptop. So, now that all the positives are out of the way, unfortunately it pretty much went downhill from here. After Doom 2016 was ported over, that was the last real game I was excited to see on the Switch for a very long time. I mean, I know what you're thinking, Doom 2016, it's not a Nintendo game, but I was very excited to have games like these portable. So, it's no surprise, Nintendo has never been my go-to main platform. I did expect that we were getting much better IPs because I was very happy with Odyssey and Breath of the Wild, but unfortunately, we didn't really get many good ones past this point, at least in my opinion. I wasn't really a fan of the Animal Crossing game. It was my first Animal Crossing. It just wasn't a game for me, and past Animal Crossing, I really didn't get into much. I'm not a Luigi's Mansion fan either. That's kind of just me. But regardless, I didn't see too many better games other than Breath of the Wild and Odyssey. Those are still my two favorite from the generation, and those are from the very, very beginning. So, after a while, I started to notice that third-party support seemed to be fading away. 2 years in, and the console was already starting to show its age. That's not a good sign if you have a console that just came out and 2 years later it's already starting to show its age, but that's what happens when you make a console that's significantly less powerful than the competition. It wasn't even as powerful as the base model Xbox One and PS4, let alone that the Xbox One X and PS4 Pro came out, and now we've even got the Series X and PS5 that are out, completely demolishing the power of this thing. Obviously the Switch is still selling better, but the Switch is also that much cheaper. So, another occurrence I started to see was Nintendo just slapping the Deluxe logo and Definitive Edition logo on their boxes for games that were already released on the Wii U. So, I've been annoyed with Nintendo for years for slapping their console name on games ever since the Wii days, because in the Wii U, whenever these games would come out, they never were really that good. It's very much a shame, because looking back at Nintendo 64 days, when you saw 64 on a game, it was always good. I mean, Super Mario 64, Mario Kart 64, Doom 64, those games were fucking incredible to me, and they still are some of my favorite games of all time as well. Doom 64 is still my favorite classic Doom game of all time. So that just goes to show that back then it used to be quality, but nowadays when you see those on there, it doesn't exactly show that much quality. So, like I just said before, we are now seeing Wii U games being ported over to the Switch with a Deluxe Edition or Definitive Edition logo on the box. Games that I can think of at the top of my head, obviously Breath of the Wild was a double release, but let's look at this. Like Lego City Undercover, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, Pokken Tournament DX, Bayonetta 2, Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, Captain Toad Treasure Tracker, Hyrule Warriors Definitive Edition, New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe, that's the funniest title in my opinion, Tokyo Mirage Sessions, FE Encore, I don't know how to pronounce that, The Wonderful 101 Remastered, and Pikmin 3 Deluxe. Now the newest one, Super Mario 3D World Bowser's Fury. So, seeing these games come over, it's not a bad thing for people to bring their games from another platform. Xbox and PlayStation do it all the time. But the thing is, when looking at these games on the Switch, it's not like looking at them when comparing them from like a 360 game to the Xbox One. The Xbox One is significantly more powerful than the 360. The PS4 is significantly more powerful than the PS3. But between the Switch and the Wii U, they're not all that different. I mean, obviously the Switch has got much different hardware than the Wii U, but in terms of horsepower, the Switch is really not that crazy much powerful than the Wii U. And just seeing these deluxe editions come out on the Switch just confirms that 100%, that these games play nearly the same and look nearly the same. It really isn't that much of a step up on the Switch version compared to the last gen version. But to make it worse, I can forgive them just bringing over the game because, everybody does that once in a while, but to price these games at $60 is ridiculous. I mean, a lot of the games on this list, they re-released for $60. The ones I can think of at the top of my head are Mario Kart 8 Deluxe and Super Mario 3D World. I don't know about the other ones on the list because I didn't look into it, but just looking at these games, they're launching at $60 when they're games that already have been out for years on the Wii U. So for someone like me who's been with the Wii U since the very beginning, it's very frustrating to see this happening to where I'm seeing the games I already have come to the Switch at the same price that I got for them on the Wii U. It just doesn't make any sense to me. So now, even now, I just remember this to the top of my head, that Zelda remake that's coming out as well on the Switch. It's also priced at $60, which is more than the price it was at when it came out on, I think it was the GameCube or the Wii. I can't remember at the top of my head which platform it came out on, but I just remember looking into that. But it's just, at this point, Nintendo's got to realize when you make a next-gen console, you're supposed to be bringing new stuff to the table, not taking a bunch of old shit from your last-gen console and bringing it over if you aren't going to price it fairly. Like I said before, if they priced it at like $40, $30 instead of the full new game price, I would understand, but they're bringing these games back over at $60. It just doesn't make any sense to me. So this thing also is that I talked about this a few months back on my Instagram before I started my YouTube channel, but since it's relevant to the video, I'm going to kind of summarize it in a little way. So let's talk about Mario 3D All-Stars, the biggest disappointment I've ever seen of anything in my entire life, just in my opinion. When the game got its announcement, to me, it was a huge deal. This was before I looked into it. I had been disappointed with Nintendo for a few years at this point, and I was very glad to see them finally doing something that the fans have been asking for quite a while now. So, Nintendo being Nintendo, I should have saw this coming from a mile away. Only Nintendo can fuck up a re-release of Super Mario 64, Galaxy, and Sunshine. Just a few months prior, we had seen someone running Super Mario 64 in Unreal Engine, and it was mind-blowing, but Nintendo took down the project. And when I saw them do that, I had a feeling that something big was going to happen, because the last time that they did this with a Samus, with a Metroid fan-made game, I couldn't think of the word on the top of my head, they released another Metroid game on the 3DS after taking down the project from the fan. So I figured that the same pattern would happen where Nintendo was really working on something to make these games remastered and look beautiful. But unfortunately, I was wrong, because Nintendo is Nintendo, and what did we get? We got Galaxy that was barely fixed, Sunshine that was just upscaled, and 64 that wasn't even full screen. And what's the most annoying part of this to me? Nintendo made the game $60. Purposely made it a limited release. Also, yeah, they purposely made it a limited release so that millions of people would impulse buy the game instead of actually wanting it in the first place. I don't know what was worse. Nintendo making the shitty move in the first place, or the fact that I know so many Nintendo fans that have backed up Nintendo for the shitty business move. The effort to port this game over to the Switch was so minimal that I probably could have gone to school for a month and done it better myself. Hell, I bet you if I looked up some fucking tutorials on YouTube and spent a few months on it, I probably could have done this myself so much better. Even though I'm not a game dev. The way that they did this was just complete BS. This was a half-ass port. They charged full price for it too. It just pisses me off so bad. That's the thing I'm most annoyed about. So my last point that I'm going to talk about is the age of the Switch at this point, and the rumors speculating over a Switch Pro or the next gen Switch. I'm not going to be talking about what I think is going to happen or what I'm sure is going to happen, because no matter what I say in this video, it's not going to age well. But what I am going to say is that depending on the move that Nintendo makes is going to decide how Nintendo feels about the fans. Because right now we have a Switch that can barely run third-party games in HD. I mean, Doom Eternal went down to 360p in some cases. The game played like garbage. It ran like garbage. I played the port. I beat the game. And just take it from me, it was rough playing it on that system, man. And I played Doom 2016 as well. It was also rough. So the system has been outdated for years and years. If Nintendo goes and makes a Switch Pro, at this point, that just means that they're trying to drag out the Switch as much as they can to get the sales numbers in it. This is the time where Nintendo needs to come out and release a more powerful Switch. This is the time. This is really the time. Games are starting to look like shit, and if they make a Switch Pro, they still have to support the Switch. If they don't make a Switch 2, they still have to support the old hardware, because it's really just a minimal upgrade, just like what happened with the Xbox One and the Xbox One X and the PS4 and the PS4 Pro, which I had made a video about, by the way, as well. Talking about if we needed a PS5 Pro. But at this point, guys, I'm really disappointed with Nintendo, and the reason is because just looking at how companies are over the years, it seems like every single time there is a game company that is on top, their egos are through the roof and they feel like they can sell anyone anything. Look at the Xbox One. Look at how the PlayStation was towards the end of the PS4 life cycle. Look at how they were PS2 going into PS3. Look at Nintendo with the Wii going into the Wii U. As soon as Nintendo was the underdog with the Wii U, they started becoming a little less egotistical and started being a lot more consumer friendly. The Switch came out at a good price point. Good games started coming out. But now that they're back at the top, it seems like they're just repeating the same pattern over again. And what's different from this time than last time is the fans are going absolutely berserk defending Nintendo for these business decisions. I have no idea how you can, in the right mind, defend Nintendo for half-assing something like Mario All-Stars or doing what they've been doing for all of these years. I have no bias towards the company. I play video games to play video games. I play it because I like the quality. I love how video games are, how they're made, the whole science behind them. I'm going into game development for fuck's sake. I will call a company out when they're doing something stupid. I've called it out with Sony. I've called it out with Microsoft. I've called it out with Nvidia. I've called it out with AMD. I've called it out with Intel. Now I'm calling it out with Nintendo, because now is the time that Nintendo needs to wise up. Otherwise, later down the line, they're going to end up getting fucked over again. And quite honestly, I think they deserve it. I hope it doesn't happen, because I want them to wise up, because I love video games, I love competition, and I love so many Nintendo IPs, but at the moment, their egos are just way, way too fucking high, and it's going to cause a downfall, and it might just cause me to not pick up a Nintendo system for the next generation if this is how things continue. If the fans keep defending every single one of their moves, Nintendo is going to stay at this place forever. It just makes me so annoyed, guys. My blood is boiling still, and it just makes me annoyed that this could potentially be the future of Nintendo. Thank you guys for watching this video. I will see you all in the next one.